recovered from the Super Bowl by now. Right?
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, well, we're going to have some fun tonight. First, we're going to have a little bit of teaching, and then we're going to have some skits. And so we're going to talk about it. So it's going to be kind of an interactive kind of deal. I think I heard the door. Oh, it's Will. There it is. All right, okay, so like I said, some teaching and then some skits. So we're going to talk about Reach and Teach 2018. This is kicking off our next midweek series. Hopefully we can make it as exciting as Faith Trek. I don't know. We'll have to see. That's set a pretty high bar. But you know, when we talk about Reaching and Teaching 2018, what's the first emotion that you think about with that?
Excitement.
Here we go. Excitement. Excitement is good. Yes.
Saving the house?
Yeah. Emotion. Think about an emotion.
Apprehension.
Apprehension. See, with me, it's fear. I'm just going to tell you it's fear. Because I'm an introvert by nature. So the idea of reaching and teaching, that's challenging. So the first question you might be asking yourself is, okay, how am I going to do that? How do we possibly do that? Because it is kind of a little bit daunting, I think, for some of us. For some of us, it's a lot daunting. Some of us might be thinking, okay, reaching and teaching, it means overcoming a lot of fears and insecurities that we have. And for some of us, it may seem like a little bit like this. This is a group of guys going up Mount Everest. So I don't know if you're feeling that way about it or not. But all I can say is, there's a great victory when you get to the top of Mount Everest. You know, here's a guy that's reached the top. So now, in reality, it's not really Mount Everest. It's really actually very simple. But I know how we can feel sometimes. I mean, I get out and I start opening my mouth and talking to people, and you have to overcome this little thing. It's like, oh, how are they going to feel about what I have to say? And then I've just got to get over myself, and that's kind of how it is. But again, a great victory there. It's not difficult. In fact, the more important question that we want to answer tonight is why. Why should we be thinking about reaching and teaching? I mean, we have a great church here. Why do we even care about bringing more people in? Why should we even care? Doreen?
Because of the impact that God has on my life.
Very good. That actually was not a real question, but that's okay. I know. Here we go. I throw it out there, and we're getting the answer.
That's right. Jesus told us to. There you go.
Oh man, this is like a segue because my next point was he wants us to. So very good. This is actually one reason that for reaching and teaching is simply, I think it's not probably the best reason, but it's a reason. It's that, quite frankly, Jesus wants us to do this. So what do you think? Do you agree with that? That is a reason, right?
Yeah.
He wants us to. In fact, he says in Matthew 28, verse 18, Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. Now, here's what we have to reconcile, is Jesus left us with this mission. I mean, do you see that up there? I mean, he tells his disciples to go and baptize, teaching them, the people they baptize, to observe all that I have commanded you. So he's kind of putting this thing in motion for all of us, right? It's not just about coming to church on Sunday. It's about doing what Jesus wants. In fact, those programs you can get involved with where you figure out your ancestry. Those? Yeah. There's Ancestry.com. There's another one called 23. something or other?
23andMe.
23andMe, okay. And you kind of, you do those because you kind of are finding your lineage. You're finding out people you're related to. But did you realize that you today, you folks here today, are directly related? You are descendants of these people here in the first century. Do you realize that? Have you ever stopped to think about that? You're direct descendants. This is your family, and you're descendants of that family. Part of the family tree. So that means we're directly related to Peter and John and the apostles and Jesus himself. We are all related. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
How do I know that? I know that because of this. John 1 verse 9, it says, now think about this. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, the Jews, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Now look at the next verse. Who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. So we were born into a family, not by a physical birth, not by the will of man, the will of the flesh, but of God. When we get baptized, we become part of that family, just like it was a real family. So we are in the family tree. I think that's pretty cool to think about. Also think about this. If that doesn't convince you, Jesus, this is what he said to the woman at the well. Remember this one? The hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father is seeking such people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. So, again, Jesus is saying, hey, we're the true worshipers. If we're worshiping in spirit and in truth, we are God's true worshipers. Even though at that time the whole system was the Jews. It was the lineage of Judaism. So remember what happened. We talked about this on Sunday when Peter and John were hauled before the Sanhedrin. Do you remember some of the things that they said to the Sanhedrin? The Sanhedrin threatened them. And they said, you guys need to stop talking about Jesus or else. Bad things are going to happen to you. And what did they say?
We cannot help but teach what God has told us.
That's right. That's right. As for us, we cannot help speaking about what we have seen and heard. So back to this idea of, we should do it because Jesus wants us to do it, right? But here's another reason. Another reason is just plain old compassion.
Yeah.
Compassion. Luke chapter 14. Jesus was invited to the home of one of the rulers of the Pharisees. He was brought to a banquet. And he had an interaction with the Pharisees. And with this Pharisee. And he said also to the man who had invited him, when you give a dinner or a banquet, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or rich neighbors, lest they also invite you in return and you be repaid. But when you give a feast, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed because they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the just. So think about this today. I guess this is a question. Who are the poor for us to? Who are the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind? As we think about our neighbors, our friends, our business associates, our relatives, what do you think that means in terms of us today?
People's relationship with Jesus.
Okay.
They might be lame, their relationship with Jesus. They might be poor in spirit. They might be blind in seeing what it takes to have a relationship with Jesus. They might believe that they have it, but yet they fall short.
Right.
I think it's literal. I think it's the people who really are in need, and once you show them love and meet their need, then they're more receptive to hearing about how Christ can meet their ultimate needs.
Right. Great. Mark?
I think it's both. Because the thing that he says there that stands out to me is because they cannot repay you. So we have something to give that they cannot give to us. It's up to us to use for them.
Yep. Think about the poor today, the poor in spirit, people who are needing relationships, people who are lonely. Think about people who have failing marriages, people who are blind to the truth. Maybe they've never had God in their life. You know, all of these are there's the literal part, which is definitely the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, but there's also all of those people that are spiritually in this state, you know, that Jesus is talking about. And so that's something we can look at ourselves. You know, it's great to come to church, and it's great to fellowship, but ask yourself this: is it the healed that need a doctor? Jesus asked that. Is it the healed that need a doctor? No, it's the sick, right, that need the doctor. So that's where we come in. Matthew chapter 9, verse 35. Jesus went throughout all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. Verse 36. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. And then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. You know, the harvest is not meager in Brevard County in 2018. There is a tremendous harvest here to be had. But Jesus says the problem in any age, any people that read this in any age, always read the same thing. It's the laborers, it's the people that are willing to work the harvest fields that are few. So you've got to ask yourself that the question that is always asked, the question that's got to be on our minds all the time is this one: who will go? Which one of us will go and be the hands and feet of Jesus? You know, I love it. I heard the phrase recently, being the hands and feet of Jesus. And I really think that is what Matthew 28, 18 through 20 puts in motion. That's who we are today. We're in Jesus' family, and we are his hands and feet. And are we willing to go? That question has been asked, whether it's in the New Testament or also asked in the Old Testament. Look at this. Isaiah chapter 6, verse 8. Same thing. If you go back and read the chapter of Isaiah, you'll see Isaiah seeing all these visions. And then he hears the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And then he speaks up and he says, here am I, send me. That's the question that should burn on all of our hearts. Is, going ourselves. Will I go? Will I reach out to my neighbors? Will I reach out to those that are sick? Okay. So we're back to this question now then, which is how. And that's where tonight we're going to have a couple of skits. Let's see, it's 7:50. I guess we'll have, you're waiting on Cheryl, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and have maybe Mike. Can you do yours? Okay, do yours first. And so here's what's going to happen. I guess I should say a little bit about this. What we're going to do is have a couple of different skits, and these guys have put something together. I have no idea what it is, but it'll be a lot of fun. And then afterwards,
hours of prep.
Yeah, afterwards, then we're going to talk about what we've seen and what you guys think about what you've seen. What does it make you think of? So.
Okay.
So, Mike, you're going to set it up, right?
Yeah, I'm going to set it up real quick. Basically, the scenario that we were talking, we had two different scenarios, and we were going to kind of do a positive interaction, a negative interaction for both scenarios. And a lot of times when it comes to reaching out, sometimes it's easy to do when you are at a restaurant And so, you know, you have a good server, or this happens, that happens, and so that's kind of, so this is the restaurant scene. And we'll stop it basically when, you know, after each scenario and kind of talk about each situation. All right.
Anything else, sir?
No, everything was great. Everything was great. How you doing?
Not so well. I mean, today I got written up by my manager, and today's just not a good.
Oh, brother, you just need to cheer up, Charlie. It's going to be okay. On Sunday, we actually have a big service coming up. And, you know, I was just thinking you looked like you were frustrated, and I think, you know, I could introduce you to a whole lot of people that I think would probably cheer you up. So, are you busy this Sunday?
Yeah, actually. I got a friend coming into town, I haven't seen him in a while, and yeah, I'm just going to meet up with him.
That's more important than church.
Well, I mean, never
Just
really
asking. I'm sorry.
never really felt like going. People are always pushy.
Okay. I'll take the check.
There you go, sir.
So, a couple of negatives.
Lack of compassion.
Okay.
Cheer up, Charlie.
Cheer up, Charlie. You might be able to take it
The patience.
You had an agenda. You weren't listening.
Right.
Yeah.
This is duty.
That was the whole point with that scenario, was the fact that a lot of times, as you're in your head about, you know, I'm trying to get somebody out to church, and you know, I'm going to do my duty, and I want to check off this. Sharing your faith is not inviting somebody out to church. You know, it is legit sharing a piece of you. So, so that was kind of that whole scenario. So we're going to replay that scenario and try to do a little bit more positive.
All right. Good job.
No, actually, everything's been great. Are you okay?
Not so much, just been a bad day.
What's going on? If you don't mind me asking, I know you're busy.
It's just I've written up my manager, got some cups in the back, and it's going to be going on my paycheck. And,
Oh.
yeah,
Well,
just,
I mean, I've been coming here for years. Charlie, you know, he's probably mad about the dishes, but he's going to be all right. You know, if there's if anything I can do for you, I mean, I've been coming here for a long time. Actually, you know, can you get your manager for me?
yeah, all right. Just one second.
Charlie, how you doing? Hey, good to see you. Hey, good to see you. I haven't seen you around for a while. I know, it's been a while. Hey, I just want to let you know that you know, Pat did some great service. It's the first time I've seen him here, so I'm assuming he's fairly new. You know, but you know,
kind of learning the ropes. You know?
okay, yeah, I had great interaction, great customer service. Food was great. It was timely. I just wanted to kind of put it in for Pat there and just let you know.
Okay, well that's great. Yeah, he's off to a pretty good start. He broke some cups back there, but you know, it's no big deal. I mean, you can buy that.
All right.
So
He'll learn the ropes.
all right, well thanks.
I just wanted to
Hey, it's good to see you
Good to see
again.
you too, man. I'll probably
Mike, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right. See you later.
So hopefully that'll help go a little bit. You know, he's a pretty cool dude. I've known him for a long time. He's pretty relaxed and everything. So I'm not gonna keep you up, but I did want to get a chance to invite you out to my church. You know, we just met, and you know, I don't know how long you've been new to this job, maybe new to the area. I'm not sure if you're looking for a church or.
Well, you kind of mentioned it. Yeah, I mean, just been out on my own, and kind of new to the area. And, yeah, I think they said starting this new job. And, yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can give you my number, and you know, if you're available, I can, you know, we can swap numbers, and I'll hit you up on Sunday, see if you're free.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, Mike. Yeah, Mike.
All right.
So that was one scenario. You want to take a minute?
Sure.
I don't want to take up time.
Do you want to talk about that one, or do you?
Yeah,
want
yeah.
People learn.
Please, absolutely. Positive, negative.
No hidden agenda.
What did you guys learn?
I like the fact that you offered up your number to him instead of wanting his number, which is always kind of weird. And that's one of those things, like, who wants to give their number out? But a lot of times if you say, hey, I'll give you my number, you can get in touch with me. A lot of times people will say, okay, let's just trade it on the phone.
Mhm.
And then you automatically get each other's.
Right.
Text message. So it's good.
It's not as pushy either if you put the ball in their court.
Right.
Oh, Lori, sorry.
I liked what you did. Some people always, when the song goes on, like, is there anything I can do? And it ends there. But you intentionally thought of something you could do to help encourage him and build him up in front of the boss, which in turn, I think he trusted you, and you just built a relation, a friendship, like instantly. You actually went beyond just what can I do, but you thought of something to really make it happen, make a difference.
Yeah, it's you didn't just talk the talk, you walked the walk. Put action behind it instead of just be warm and well fed kind of thing. You actually did something.
So
usually when you go into a situation like that, you have to assume you may get a no,
Right.
hoping for a yes.
Right.
So that situation, we did that. First situation, it was just going for a yes, without hoping for a no.
Bulldozer.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
I think the fact that you were so approachable, he was able to share what was really going on with him.
Mhm.
And the fact that you weren't judgmental of that at all, and that you gave him like encouragement, even though you didn't know him, you didn't know the situation, but you gave him the benefit of the doubt, and you also gave the manager the benefit of the doubt, so you were very fair.
Yep.
I like that because you had a relationship with the manager, because you knew his name, y'all knew each other's name, that he was able to listen to you and y'all could really give you positive feedback on him because you had a relationship with the manager at that point too.
I like the way you thought of how you could meet his need.
Yeah.
Not all of us think that, and think that you knew the manager was awesome. That doesn't only usually happen, but the point is that you really were looking to meet his need, and I think that was important.
I think too, the fact that you knew the manager meant that your whole lifestyle was you're kind of out there. You're out of yourself. Not out there. You know.
That too. Yeah.
But you must be out of yourself. You practice that, and so you know people. That's all. That's very good.
I think that you didn't walk into the restaurant like blindly, like just to yourself, because you were by yourself and on your phone.
Right.
That you saw that there was something wrong, something bothering him, and you were observant to that. So it wasn't like you were just going in and just eat your meal and get out. Like when you looked at him, you had to have contact with eye contact with him, and you looked at him and saw that he wasn't happy and something was troubling him. And you took the time to ask him and genuinely ask him, like, hey, what's wrong with you? Because most people go inside a restaurant, especially by themselves, they don't make eye contact with people.
Right.
They're into their own world.
Right. Yeah.
One more thing too, I think that the way we present ourselves, people notice because he did look kind of down. He was down, yes, like, So I think that with how we come out, it definitely makes people look at us. So do we look like we were ready? You know what I mean? I think that's all.
All right. So, scene 2, negative. Scene 2.
Negative and scene 2.
The negative.
Did we?
Yeah. Because we're
Oh, it's kind of along the same lines, I guess.
Okay.
Try. Try.
Well, it's supposed to be improv.
Let's do it.
There you go.
Wait.
Oh, we're doing the.
Is this part of it?
All right, take two. You got it. Anything else? No, I'm good. Let me go ahead and just get the check. And I just wanted to. I don't usually do this, but wanted to get a chance. I mean, we had good service and good personality. I don't know if you're looking for a church, but we're having a big service this Sunday, and I was wanting to see if maybe you wanted to come out to church. I don't know if you have a home church or anything like that.
Thanks, but no thanks. What did I ask?
You have some plans on Sunday? Okay. I do know that my community group is meeting this Tuesday. If you want to meet this Tuesday, if you can't do Sunday.
I also have some plans.
You seem like monumentally busy. Like Friday, we are having a Valentine's dance that maybe you can bring your friends to, since you seem to be like real social.
Well, as busy as we were, Friday is my day off, and I'd rather relax.
All right.
Rain check.
All right. Well, I come back every Saturday, so I'll keep bugging you until you.
There you go.
I heard that. So along similar lines, with the pushiness and the agenda and the always having something, you can kind of get the vibe, that it wasn't really his thing to be. First, I caught him off guard. It was awkward, and we were kind of going through all that. So I'll just hurry up and do the positive so that you guys can discuss.
Well,
I don't want to take it on the side.
I thought about something. Please. When you're doing this, you're not like selling a bunch of watches from out. No. Oh, you don't like this one? Well, maybe you like this one. Yes.
Something that came to my mind, I've been in this situation before, when you would be taking up the waiter's time when he's busy.
Right.
And I think that's not a good thing.
Agreed.
Would you like anything else, Rick?
No, I'm good. Just to check. Real quick, before you leave, I just wanted to get a chance to invite you out. Our church is actually having a huge service this Sunday, and it's going to be really exciting. And there's a lot going on over there. So, in your face, I haven't seen you. I come to the restaurant all the time. So,
I'm not entirely a big churchgoer.
no problem. Well, I come here all the time, and great service, great food. Smiling face. I hope you have a good day. I won't pick you up. You got a lot of people that you got to go see, but I'll definitely ask for you next time, so that way, I know I'm going to get good service when I see you.
Well, I appreciate that.
I'll catch you around, man. Have a good day.
I like that.
So you have feedback. You want feedback?
I like the idea of ending with something positive, and not just leave it at, oh, he said no, okay,
Right.
and then move on.
Right.
You left it with something positive. I thought that was good.
Right, exactly. It's going down.
Yeah.
One of the things I noticed, you never really asked him if he actually goes to church already. If he's part of another type of denomination,
Right.
what denomination you are.
True.
That's all unknown.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the way I left it was, I come here all the time, so maybe I'll build a relationship with him. It has nothing to do with church, and eventually I'm just planting seeds, maybe one day.
Yep. That's awesome.
So, one thing, let me ask you guys, is do you think when you see this, does this seem practical to you, or do you see practical things about it you can use, or anything like that kind of catch your attention, where, especially if you're kind of new to this or it's awkward to you, what do you think? So,
I think you can't wait till the very end. I think you have to build a relationship throughout the experience with whomever it is. If it's a waiter or waitress, by just getting their name in the beginning, repeating their name, thanking them, and and then by the time you get to the end, it's not so awkward, right? Because it does become that press time. Oh no, they're going to leave. I have 2 seconds left. Okay. And then it becomes weird versus they get to know you throughout the meal and they get to know your group throughout the meal.
I think I did. I think especially with ending on a positive thing, and then just also looking for ways, like if it is a situation where they're not happy or whatever, looking for ways that I can do something for them. Whatever it is, regardless of, whether they say yes or come to church or not, just find a way to meet the need there. I think go a long way to, the guy would remember you, that's for sure.
Cool. Yep.
I've done all of those.
Yeah.
And
Positive and negative, right?
Positive and negative. But I will say the thing that really stands out to me is it's good to just push through. I mean, even if you mess up, and we will mess up, we are going to offend people. I mean, things are going to happen. We're going to learn, but we get better as we do it. It's when you don't do it for 5 years, then it's really awkward. But it's just a matter of continuing to learn.
Yep. Martin, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say I think it's also a matter of knowing your audience, so you can gauge a person and where they are, and so you don't want to offend people, you don't want to come across too pushy, you want to come across open like you did in a lot of scenarios, and then you'll quickly gauge if they are receptive, and that kind of takes on a life of itself. It's a very natural thing to do. It's a natural conversation. It's just like you're asking somebody, okay, what is your favorite sport? So for me, I find that's how my approach is. It's not something that's awkward. It's just it's a natural flow of, what do you like? What do you into? And I think if you approach it from that standpoint, it just makes it a little bit easier. It's not so intrusive.
Right. And something I'll say too that I think Mike said when we started off is, obviously tonight's a little bit kind of contrived. It's wired together, but sharing your faith is not about necessarily inviting someone to church. I mean, we work that in here, but it can be 1,000 different things. Right. And the point is, and Martin, you said it, is you're connecting with people. You're really trying, your audience, you're trying to figure your audience out, and you want to make a connection with them. And it's amazing how, God works. It's true that, when Mark said here about, pushing through, because it can feel really awkward to us, and it's not that awkward. Or we can make it awkward ourselves instead of just going on through it. And, our mind can play all kinds of games with us, and Satan loves to feed those as we're taking action. That's the one, the thing that Satan absolutely does not want us to do is take any action on this at all. That is the one. So he will use every mind game that he can possibly use as we get started.
And like I think you've been saying too, sometimes it's just about sharing your faith. It's just sharing your life. Like if you're out with your family, I think if you're having a good time as a family and really like enjoying one another, people pick up on it. We've been able to like have people in conversations with us just by how we're having fun and interacting. And then they'll ask, oh my gosh, like if David and I are out and we joke a lot, and David's a jokester, they're like, oh my gosh, where did you meet this guy? In church, by the way. And so, and it starts a conversation, and we start talking, and we're like, and we'll tell them how we met or something briefly. We've had waiters who've been busy, and they're like, we have like part 3, part 4 to our conversation. They're like, okay, I'll be right back. I gotta go do this, but I want to hear that, and they'll come back. But I think sometimes it's just about being who you are and letting people see that and inviting them into that. And then you can have a conversation. Because sometimes they'll offer things up. Man, I haven't been in church in so long. Or, and then before you know it, you're talking naturally. And can invite them.
I agree. I just want to follow up on that one. Because I was thinking about how I wasn't invited to church. It was my friend Ciara, who wasn't even a disciple back then, back in college, but she was always different. She never went to party. Every time I saw her, she was always like a first row student like me, and always studying hard, always very respectful and kind. And then years down the road, I didn't know her that was back then. And just down the road, she had an opportunity, and she just introduced me to church. Versus another time, I got brought to church on a couple of Sundays by a guy who had found out he was drunk all the time. And that is very different. So for me, now I think about it, if I want to approach others, I want to make sure I am acting as
living a life.
Yes, I don't want to say something that I'm not doing.
Right. Very good. Okay.
I think the being relatable part is very helpful. Like even at a movie or whatever, when you're walking out, you just talk about the movie and how it impacted you, and then the conversation just leads to something else. And, oh, are you guys from around here? And then that just flows. Like you said, you are vulnerable with your own emotions and your own spirituality, and other people are vulnerable to that.
Very good. Yes.
I think what Benny said, Sophie said, rings a bell with me, because I know that, when I was met, and I've heard this, from other people, that one of the things that impacted me was seeing the kids that when Katrina was little that she was playing with, and how they behaved and how they act, and me thinking, there's something different about these kids. They're just not, and that kind of sparked my interest. And I know that when we had our New Year's Day party, a friend of Tamika came out, and then she came out and she brought a friend with her that had a little boy also that to my house that day. And they came to church on Sunday, and the first thing she said to me, after saying hi, she asked where were Benji and Adam. She goes, there's something about them, they're such nice boys, So I think it reflects in our action, it reflects, in our upbringing with our kids, and what we do, people see. And sometimes we don't think that they are watching, but people watch.
Yeah. And every life event that happens to you can be used. I think God puts things there for a reason. Some of them are just very minor, and some of them are major events. You can use them. Surgery is certainly one of those. You can use that to reach out to a whole different group. They're becoming friends of ours. So life events can do that. Things your kids are involved in. It's a life event that you can relate. Our kids growing up were involved in different things. Tommy was in cross country. The girls were in the Odyssey of the Mind. The girls were in dancing and theater. All those things we used to reach out to people, and we, met couples and baptized them over the years. And many of them are friends to this day. So you just don't know. It's use the opportunities in your life, and they're different for every stage of your life. Obviously, mine's different now from when I had. Now I got a whole different set of things to draw. That's how it goes. So, just some thoughts there. I think another one is when my parents were getting old, we went through a lot as they were failing in their last years to take care of them. Well, that kind of opened up a whole new vista for us, because we found there were just thousands of people and hundreds of support groups of people going through taking care of their parents at end of life. Well, all of those things are things you can use to build relationships. So, seems something. Okay, I've stalled about as long as I can. Is Cheryl on the way?
Denise is my wife.
Oh, Denise is your wife. David's not here.
My church is not here. All right.
Well, you want to go for
Curtis is a 5-year-old.
What's his name?
I'll get Kermit. Come here, Kermit.
Pick up some furnace, man.
Come on, Kermit. Kermit loves going out at night.
Oh, wow.
How are you doing? I'm doing pretty good. I just get my fingernails dirty, you know. I like to dig in the dirt and water.
You got a green thumb.
Yeah, I do. I do.
Wow, it's nice flower.
Yeah, I think right.
I don't think I've ever met you. I mean, we're your neighbors down the road here.
Nice to meet you too. My name is Deborah Hayes. Nice to meet you. Yeah, is that your
No idea how to start a garden. How did you start this?
Well, you know, I mean, I just kind of learned over the years, but if you like to know, maybe you come over for lunch one day and I will teach you a few things.
I would love that. Wow, what would I need to bring? I mean, do I need gloves? Okay.
I got all the stuff here, you know. If you want to just wear some gloves, I can show you the flowers that I have and tell you about them and what they need and what they don't need.
Give her a card.
Yeah, here is our number. If you'd like to call me, let me know what day would be good for you. I can look at my schedule and we can arrange a time. I would really appreciate your effort and learning from you. And
That's good.
Always good to meet you. And I want to hold you up from your garden.
All right. No, hey, yeah, we'll have to get together soon.
Yes, definitely.
Great. Nice
You
to
guys
meet
have a
you.
good day.
Okay, you too.
Oh, wow. Hey, how you doing?
Dog owners.
Yeah.
I've seen your dog before.
Yeah. I see your dog.
Yeah, we live in town.
Well, I'm Sunny. I'm nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Well, yeah. Be careful though, he bites his mouth.
Do you guys live near here?
Oh, yeah. Right.
Oh, are you in that, the two-story house? We're down on the we just moved in like a little less than a year ago. We came down from Ohio and where'd you come
We've been here, about 3 years. I never saw you guys.
What do you think of it?
It's nice. It's a very nice neighborhood. We're very happy here.
Well, we haven't got to explore much. Is there anything you recommend?
The walking trails, the bikes, the beach.
Oh, yeah.
Do you guys like to hike or walk?
Just walk, ride our bikes.
Bike?
Well, maybe we can meet sometime. You guys can show us like the best trails to go on.
Sure.
Would you be open to that? That would be cool.
Let me see, I've got my card here.
Let's do this.
What?
How would you call it? Let's do this, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this, guys.
What's your name?
That's great.
Give me your
text too.
Okay.
Call me, okay?
740
Okay.
602 0770.
Got it. Okay.
Tell me and yours will just come right in.
Gotcha. That'll work. Okay.
Sure.
Looking forward.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Well,
What's your name again?
Mark.
Mark. And you are? Donnie. Nice to meet you.
Kermit.
You Kermit?
Okay.
All right. Have a good night. All right.
Let's go.
Let's go home for a minute. And why don't we say a prayer for our friends that we've met? Father, thank you for the new friends that we've met, Curtis and Liz and Deb, and I do pray that we can continue to reach out to them, invite them to our home, and just really build a great relationship with them. Thank you for this time. In Jesus we pray. Amen.
That's very good.
So, what do y'all think? What'd you learn from it?
Working on
I think it was.
building
I think it was good that they asked them questions about things that obviously interested them, versus just talking about their own thing. Although I think you do that long enough, you're gonna have full stuff. So your schedule's gonna be so full, you're not gonna be able to, go gardening with them, walk with them, But no, I think that's great because it definitely gives us opportunities for people to talk about themselves, and people like to do that, and it's a great way to start a relationship.
Okay, great. Props, right?
Thanks for the guys on the props. But no, they're working on building the relationship rather than just bombarding them with the invitation to church, because that comes across more agenda. And then the other thing I noticed was the fact that, and actually this is something that my wife were dealing with, a year ago we just let the dogs out in the backyard, and then now we walk them every morning out in front, and we've been walking them around the circle, and we've met actually like 3 or 4 neighbors that we didn't know because we were walking the dogs, and now there's certain people we say hi to every morning. We're building relationships and things like that.
Right. Kind of goes back to that who's my neighbor stuff. Where you meet
Be active and get out.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I think it was, there's a difference sometimes when you meet people, like if it's somebody you may never see again, you may have to put that invitation out, but because they will see their neighbors, out, they didn't have to right away push for, whatever, let's build the relationship and that kind of thing, so I think that was good.
Yep. Yeah, there's, we used to call it cold contact evangelism. That is it's the least effective in terms of the number of people you have to invite, but it also is very exciting when you get somebody who just out of the blue they're interested. Mm-hmm. So, but it's better, relational contact is much more effective. It just takes longer to develop that.
Well, no, I was going to say, I think our point was like you leave the ball in their court, because if they're really interested, David and I have done this type of evangelism a lot, and sometimes they'll call you, and sometimes they won't, and you just continue. But you put the invitation out there, they know that, okay, if you want to take things further, if you want to come over for wine or come over for dinner, it's out there already. And sometimes they will initiate, and sometimes they won't. So it's just leaving it up to them or opening the door. So
good. Martin?
I was going to say, I think it was last year you handed out the neighbor sheet, and I think it had like 8 squares or something on it. Well, we decided to expand it to the whole neighborhood.
Wow.
So we have gone around and tried to meet everyone on our big circle around the pond. And that's how we met Andy and Elaine, who came out Sunday. But after we meet each one, we go back and write down where their house is, what their number is, and something about them. So it's hard to remember everyone. But then praying about them. Because I think a lot of times I miss the Holy Spirit. Because it says the word will not return void, but we are speaking the very words of God. And I think it's real important that we just learn to build relationships, care for people, and speak kind words to them. And we did not expect Andy and Elaine to come on Sunday. And Liz came up, hey, you got visitors. And I'm like, who? We did not know they were coming, but we've talked to them enough that they figured out where the church was. And they came. So you just never know where that contact is going to bear fruit.
Everybody in here has a story like that. And it's different. Everybody's story is different. How they were met, how they were invited, who invited, what the circumstance was, what made them decide to come. It was the Holy Spirit working in all of our lives to bring us. Everybody's got a different experience. So this is part of the exciting thing about life is seeing this happen for somebody else. If we're not about that, then we miss out on that. That's the joyful part of it. So, any other comments?
I was liking that last case scenario there where You make the effort and you pray about it. Pray for it. Because you have to inject the Holy Spirit. You're not doing this on your own.
Yeah.
Great, great. Yes, Carolina.
Yeah, like today we decided, Doreen, we decided that no matter what happened, we're going to get together. So we started with this thought, and we got together this morning, and we got 2 women. One came to do her hair with the Bible in her hand, and she came earlier, and we were there, and a lady came, and we were about to pray over you. No, when she came in, we started praying. And then Sonia, that's coming out on Sunday, she came out. And then Teresa, my employee, you know, I mean, God is working. He works in mysterious ways. And that's our prayer that we can have more women come. My dream is that I will have a group of women that speak Spanish, and that we can start a Spanish ministry. So that's my prayer for this year. Saying it out loud. And that's
Okay, so as everybody knows, you know, my family, and so one of the things that I've been working on for myself is praying more. So that really was impacted, Mark, that you prayed for, you know, who you're reaching out to. And besides me praying more and throughout the day and for everything, from time to time, my children, there's stuff that comes up about that it really needs prayer, but do I remember? So a couple of times I've asked the church to pray. And so, and you know, it was successful, you know, it's awesome. But couple of my daughters, 3 of my daughters recently went through, or going through different things. And one of the things that when I'm talking to them, because they're not really trusting of others, so they will share everything, you know, with us, with each other. So when they share things with me, I will say to them to pray about it. And so now, you know, like they will say, I prayed about it, you know, and so you see the progress. And today, one of my girls, she called me up and she was sharing some things that was going on with her. And I said, you know, again, I reminded her that she needs, you know, just pray about it. So I think, you know, just not only investing in, you know, like showing the lifestyle and this, but even just reminding them that they need to pray, you know, whoever you're reaching out to, which is what I'm doing in my only among children. And then I thought about, as we were talking tonight, about fear and how fear cripples us and it stops us. And I think about, even as we were talking this morning, how a lot of us are fearful. We're afraid to, you know, I would consider myself a very shy person, you know, and I wouldn't want to talk or open my mouth. And so how to overcome that is, Mike and Pat, you know, would go out together and reach out. So then if Mike is more outgoing, he would, you know, share his faith, and then Pat would see that and imitate that. So, because it's not easy when you're, you know, when you're shy or you're an introvert, it's not easy to go out there and share your faith, you know. So just to be encouraging. So that's what I would encourage too, is like to have somebody, you know, or a group, you know, which is not hard, you know, that for some people it's easy, like myself, but others who it's not as easy to be encouraged to, you know, carry people or whatever with children.
Good point. Okay, so what do you think about this? Then we have, when's our next midweek?
2 weeks.
2 weeks from tonight. How about this? Does everybody here think that maybe in the next 2 weeks you can reach out to somebody in some way, just to kind of take this to a practical point? What do y'all think about that?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then those that want to share about, the next time we get together in midweek, I'll ask who wants to share their experience. Because I think the thing to realize is, and you saw it with what Carolina and Doreen are doing. You're part of that group, right? And Teresa. And you know, there is this. and Gladys, there's this invisible force.
I came back.
There's an invisible force that's working all the time. The Holy Spirit is out there working. And if people just make these really tiny decisions to start getting together or whatever, exciting things start happening. So if we start deciding to step out on faith, share our faith a little bit, talk to someone, push our own personal comfort envelope. Everybody's got their comfort envelope. If you can just kind of edge it a little bit and nudge it along, God causes amazing things to happen. You know, if we stay in our comfort zone, probably not much is going to happen. But if we just start pushing it, all of a sudden God says, "Oh, this lump is starting to move. I can help it roll along here." You know, that's how it works, and great things will happen. So, great input tonight, and just awesome. The skits, fantastic.